The morning sky was pale and soft when Ravi opened his eyes. He slept on a small patch of dry ground near an old road that curved into the forest. The night had been cold, and the thin blanket he carried in his backpack did little to keep him warm. Still, he had learned to live through nights like this. He took a deep breath and sat up slowly. His joints felt stiff, and his clothes were worn, but he kept a calm expression. Life had pushed him down many times, yet he tried each day to stand again. Ravi had been without a home for a long time. He walked from town to town, doing small repair jobs for anyone who needed help. He was not a man who spoke much, but he had kind hands and a patient heart. People trusted him with broken things. Sometimes he received food, sometimes a few coins, sometimes only a warm thank you. He accepted whatever came his way. He believed that a person without pride could still carry dignity if he worked with honesty. That morning, after washing his face at a nearby stream, he started walking again. The forest path was quiet, and only the sound of birds filled the air. He stopped when he noticed something strange on a wooden post beside the trail. A piece of paper was pinned there with a small nail. He stepped closer and read it with careful eyes. The notice said a cabin in the forest needed repairs. Payment and meals were offered. The person who wrote the note mentioned the exact location and asked for someone who could work with wood and basic tools. The handwriting was neat and smooth. It did not look like the writing of someone careless. Ravi held the paper for a moment, thinking. A job meant food and rest. A job meant purpose. And purpose kept him moving forward. He folded the paper and followed the direction shown. The path grew narrower as he walked deeper into the forest. Tall trees formed a roof overhead, letting only scattered sunlight pass through. Leaves crunched under his steps. After half an hour he reached a small clearing, and there he saw the cabin mentioned in the notice. The cabin looked tired. The wooden walls had cracks. The porch leaned slightly to one side. The roof was missing several shingles. Even from a distance, he could tell the structure needed care. Ravi approached slowly, running his fingers along the railing. The wood felt soft from age. Before he could look further, he heard footsteps behind him. He turned and saw a woman walking down the path. She moved with calm steps. She wore a long brown coat and simple boots. Her hair was tied neatly behind her head. Her face was gentle, and her eyes were sharp in a quiet way. She stopped a few feet away and offered a small smile. She introduced herself as Mira. Her voice was soft but steady. She said she owned the land and needed help restoring the cabin before winter. She asked if he was the one who read her notice. Ravi nodded. He explained he could repair wood, fix roofs, and handle basic structural work. Mira listened with interest. She studied his posture, the way he spoke, the way he observed the cabin. Something about him seemed different from most workers she had met before. She guided him around the cabin, asking what he thought needed to be done. Ravi walked the perimeter slowly, pointing out weak boards, damaged beams, and places where water had seeped in. He never acted proud of his knowledge. He spoke plainly, as if explaining the world around him was natural. Mira found herself watching him more than the cabin. It had been a long time since she met someone who worked without fuss. After the inspection, she asked if he could begin the repairs today. Ravi agreed. She handed him a meal before he started, a warm bowl of soup and bread from the small kitchen inside. He ate quietly on the porch steps while she watched from the doorway. He thanked her politely. She smiled again, but there was something in her eyes that held distance, as if she carried thoughts she did not want to share. Ravi began with the porch. He removed old boards, measured new ones, and hammered them into place with precise movements. The sound of his tools echoed through the forest. Mira stayed nearby, reading a book or tending to small chores, yet her eyes drifted to him often. His focus impressed her. He worked as if repairing the cabin mattered more than anything. When noon arrived, Mira brought him more food. She asked how he learned to fix things. He told her about his childhood in small towns, how he grew up helping at local shops, how he carried a simple curiosity for how things worked. He did not mention the struggles he faced or the reasons he ended up on the road. Those details belonged to him alone. Mira shared little about her own life. She said she wanted a quiet cabin for rest. She did not mention the meetings, the companies, the board decisions waiting for her in the city. She did not mention that she was one of the wealthiest women in the region. She did not mention that she came here to escape noise and pressure. Ravi saw no reason to press her for information. As the afternoon passed, the porch began to look new. The boards were straight. The steps were stronger. Ravi wiped sweat from his forehead and stepped back to check his work. Mira walked over and studied the changes with wide eyes. She told him it looked better than she expected. Her voice carried genuine appreciation. Ravi felt a quiet warmth in his chest. Being valued for his work was a rare feeling. He nodded in thanks and moved on to the next part while the sunlight still remained. In the late afternoon, Myra's phone rang. She stepped away quickly to take the call, but her voice carried back to Ravi. He heard words like schedule and meeting and report. She spoke with a tone he had not heard from her before. It was firm and commanding. Not the gentle tone she used with him. He did not turn to look. He respected her space, yet something inside him wondered who she really was. Her clothes were simple, but her posture, her speech, and the way she carried herself hinted at a life far bigger than a forest cabin. When she finished the call, she returned with a calm expression, though he noticed a shadow of stress in her eyes. She changed the subject quickly, asking about the progress of the repairs. He answered without mentioning the call. As the sky dimmed, she invited him inside to rest. She set up a small sleeping space for him near the window. The cabin was not perfect yet, but it was safe enough for the night. Ravi lay down, feeling the softness of the blanket she provided. It was cleaner and warmer than anything he had used in months. He stared at the ceiling, thinking about the work ahead and the strange kindness of the woman who hired him. She had given him food, shelter, and trust without asking for anything in return. Yet she held herself with the grace of someone used to influence. He closed his eyes slowly. He did not know that Mira was watching him from the doorway. She wondered why this quiet man made her feel more human than anyone in her world of wealth. She wondered how long she could keep her real identity hidden. For now, the cabin stood between them. A place of repair. A place of secrets. A place where two strangers began to change each other without meaning to. The next morning arrived with soft light passing through the thin curtains of the cabin. Ravi woke up slowly, surprised by the warmth around him. It had been a long time since he slept under a roof without fear of being told to leave. For a moment he remained still, listening to the subtle sounds of the forest outside. Birds called from the trees, and a light breeze brushed against the cabin walls. It felt peaceful, almost unreal. He sat up and folded the blanket neatly. He believed that order brought calm, no matter where he lived. When he stepped outside, he found Mira preparing tea near a small outdoor fire pit. She greeted him with a smile that looked softer than yesterday. Ravi returned a polite nod and sat on a low wooden stool nearby. Mira handed him a warm cup. He sipped it slowly, feeling the gentle heat ease the chill in his body. She asked if he slept well. He answered that he had, thanking her for the safe place. She waved her hand lightly, saying he deserved rest after working so hard. Ravi did not respond to the praise. Compliments made him slightly uneasy, but he appreciated the sincerity in her tone. After finishing the tea, Ravi prepared his tools and walked around the cabin to decide what to repair next. The roof needed major work, and he knew it would take days. He checked each shingle, tested the strength of the beams, and planned the order of tasks in his mind. Mira watched him from a distance, noticing how he moved with steady confidence. She approached him and asked if he needed any materials from town. Ravi explained he could make progress with the wood stored behind the cabin but would need nails, stronger boards, and sealant by the end of the day. Mira nodded. She said she would go to town soon and bring whatever he needed. For a moment, Ravi hesitated. He offered to accompany her since carrying heavy tools alone might be difficult. Mira smiled at the offer, but she declined. She said she needed to take care of something in town that would not take long. Her words were simple, but her eyes held a small uncertainty, as if she wished she could explain more but chose not to. Ravi did not push. He had learned that some people carried burdens they could not share. With that, Mira left in her small car, driving through the trees toward the main road. Ravi returned to the roof. He climbed the ladder and began removing the damaged shingles carefully. The forest around him felt quiet. Only the steady rhythm of his hammer echoed through the clearing. As he worked, he thought about Mira. She was polite, gentle, and generous, yet there was something hidden behind her calm behavior. Her phone calls, her poised movements, the quality of her clothing, even though it looked simple, and the careful way she spoke all created questions in his mind. Still, he reminded himself, it was not his place to dig into her life. She had treated him with respect, and that alone made the job worth doing. Midday sunlight warmed his back as he continued working. Sweat formed on his forehead, and he wiped it with his sleeve before securing another beam. The cabin roof slowly began to look strong again. The work gave him a sense of purpose he had missed for a long time. Mira returned in the early afternoon with bags of supplies. She carried them to the porch, and Ravi climbed down from the roof to help her. She thanked him, though he told her he was only doing his job. She looked at him with a thoughtful expression, as if she admired how he never exaggerated his own value. After unloading the supplies, Mira offered him lunch. They sat under the shade of a tree. Ravi ate quietly, while Mira shared a few stories about buying the cabin. She said she wanted a peaceful place away from noise. He listened, noticing how her voice softened when she looked at the trees around them. But as she spoke, her phone vibrated again. She tried to ignore it, yet after a few seconds she sighed and checked the screen. Her face tightened for a moment. Ravi looked away to give her privacy. She stepped aside to answer the call. Ravi heard part of the conversation. Her tone shifted again, becoming firm and commanding. She mentioned reviewing documents, confirming schedules, and managing a project. These were not things an ordinary landowner handled. They sounded like responsibilities of someone important. When she ended the call, she returned with a polite smile, but Ravi could sense the pressure she carried. He decided not to mention anything. It was clear she wanted to keep her private life separate from her time at the cabin. He returned to the roof. Mira sat on the porch, pretending to read a book while her thoughts wandered. She watched him with quiet admiration. She had met many skilled workers in her life, but few carried the same mix of humility and strength that Ravi did. There was something steady in his presence, something calm that made her feel grounded. Hours passed. Ravi repaired the upper beams, replaced 3 long boards, and secured new shingles across one side of the roof. Mira approached him with cold water, and he accepted it gratefully. She asked if the work was difficult. He answered that every job came with challenges, but he liked solving them step by step. His simple wisdom made her smile. By the time the sun lowered behind the trees, the forest grew cooler. Ravi climbed down from the ladder, his muscles tired but satisfied. Mira thanked him again for his hard work. She told him she admired how he stayed focused for so long. He shrugged lightly, saying that fixing things gave him peace. They walked inside the cabin as the evening light faded. Mira prepared a light dinner. Ravi sat at the table while she worked. He noticed how careful she was with every movement. She handled utensils gently, organized items neatly, and spoke in a tone that carried grace. As they ate, they shared more about simple topics. Mira asked him about places he had traveled. He described small towns, quiet streets, and the kind strangers he had met along the way. She listened closely, fascinated by his experiences. He talked about challenges too, but never with bitterness. For him, life was not something to complain about. It was something to endure with patience. After dinner, Mira stepped out for a moment to put away some tools. Her phone rang again. Ravi heard the ringtone from the doorway. When she answered, her voice carried tension. She said she needed more time away from the office. She said she would return when she was ready. She sounded firm, yet tired. When she came back inside, she saw Ravi looking at the floor, pretending he heard nothing. She felt a mix of relief and guilt. She appreciated his respect for her privacy, yet she also feared the moment he discovered who she really was. Later, as night settled over the forest, Ravi sat near the window while Mira lit a small oil lamp. The cabin glowed with warm light. He thought about how much it had changed in just 2 days. The structure was stronger, and the energy inside felt lighter. Mira had begun trusting him, and he found himself trusting her too, even though mysteries still surrounded her. Before he went to sleep, she thanked him once more for everything he had done. Ravi replied that he would continue until the cabin stood strong again. Mira smiled softly, yet her heart felt heavy with secrets she did not want to reveal. When Ravi lay down, he looked at the ceiling beams he planned to fix next. He felt purpose again. Something inside him whispered that this cabin would not only change his days but also his future. Across the room, Mira watched him quietly. She wondered how long she could hide her identity as a billionaire. She wondered what would happen if he discovered the truth. Yet for now, she wanted to keep this simple world alive for as long as she could. Because for the first time in years, she felt seen as a person, not a powerful figure. And that feeling mattered more than anything she owned. The rain began early the next morning. It started as a light drizzle and slowly grew into a steady fall that tapped gently against the cabin roof. Ravi woke to the sound of raindrops hitting the wooden boards above him. He sat up and listened for a moment, feeling thankful he had repaired part of the roof already. At least the water would not leak inside now. He folded his blanket neatly and stepped out of the small room Mira had set aside for him. The air inside the cabin smelled warm, like fresh tea and burning wood. Mira was already awake. She sat near the fireplace stirring a pot of porridge. Her expression looked peaceful, but Ravi could also sense a quiet heaviness in her eyes, as if thoughts weighed on her more than sleep ever could. She greeted him with a gentle smile. He returned the greeting and thanked her for the warm food. They ate together in silence, listening to the soft rhythm of rain against the window. Mira asked if he would be able to work today. Ravi told her he could continue repairing some furniture and window frames inside the cabin until the rain passed. She nodded with appreciation. The cabin felt different that morning. The rain brought a calm stillness to the forest. No birds sang. The wind was quiet. Only the falling drops made any sound. Inside, the crackling fire kept the room warm. Mira sat at the table with a notebook open, though she did not write anything for a long time. Ravi noticed her shifting posture and troubled gaze. She looked like someone trying to hide overwhelming thoughts. He carried a small chair to the center of the room and began examining its broken leg. Mira watched him closely. She admired the way he handled objects with patience and respect. He never rushed and never wasted effort. She found a strange comfort in that. In her usual world, everything moved fast. People talked loudly, demanded answers quickly, and expected her to always make the right decision. But here she could sit quietly and watch a man repair a simple chair as if the world outside did not exist. The rain continued, growing heavier. The cabin dimmed, and Mira lit another small lamp. Ravi worked steadily, shaping wood pieces and fitting them together. She sat across from him, hands folded, as she let the quietness settle around them. After a long silence, Ravi asked if everything was fine. His voice was soft. Mira blinked, as if she did not expect the question. She hesitated, unsure if she should share her worries or stay quiet. She eventually gave a small nod and said she was only tired. Her answer was gentle but not fully honest. Ravi sensed it, but he did not push further. He knew that some truths came out only when a person felt ready. He focused on the chair again. Mira continued watching him. There was something calming about the steady rhythm of his hands. She began to relax slightly. Yet her phone vibrated again, breaking the moment. She stiffened. She picked it up quickly and turned her back before answering. Her voice changed as soon as she spoke. Gone was the soft tone she used with Ravi. Instead, she spoke with authority and precision. She mentioned urgent requests, reports, deadlines, and people waiting for her decision. Her words were sharp and controlled. Ravi tried not to listen, but the room was small, and he heard enough to understand that she lived a life very different from the one she showed him. When she ended the call, she took a deep breath before turning around. She offered a forced smile and sat down again. Her expression carried tiredness she could no longer hide. Ravi handed her the repaired chair and told her it should last many more years. She thanked him sincerely, her eyes softening a little. She tried to distract herself by bringing out an old wooden box. She explained that it belonged to her father and held some tools. Ravi looked through the items with gentle curiosity. The box contained old nails, a worn-out hammer, and a few pieces of wood her father had shaped long ago. Mira touched the edge of the box with care. Her voice lowered as she said she had not opened it for a long time. Ravi asked if she wanted to learn how to use any of the tools. She paused, then nodded with a shy smile. He guided her step by step, showing her how to sand wood and fix small cracks. Her hands were not steady at first, and she made small mistakes, but Ravi never laughed or corrected her harshly. He simply guided her gently, and she relaxed more with each task. For the first time that day, she laughed quietly when a piece of wood slipped from her hands. Her laugh sounded peaceful, and Ravi smiled a little. She looked different when she laughed, younger and lighter, as if the weight on her shoulders had faded for a moment. They worked together for hours, repairing small items and cleaning old wooden frames. The rain softened outside, turning into a light drizzle. The forest grew a little brighter as clouds thinned. Mira felt a strange comfort in the slow rhythm of the day. She wished she could live like this more often, away from the constant demands of her other life. In the afternoon, the rain finally stopped. Ravi stepped outside to check the roof and see if any new damage had formed during the storm. Mira stayed inside, watching from the window. She admired his calm presence, the way he moved with steady purpose. For a moment she wondered how someone with so little could carry such quiet strength. She rubbed her hands together as she thought about the truth she had been hiding. She feared what would happen if Ravi discovered she was a billionaire with responsibilities she had never chosen for herself. She feared he would treat her differently or distance himself. She feared losing the one place where she felt like a normal person. When Ravi returned inside, she asked if the roof held up well. He nodded and said the repairs were strong so far. She looked relieved. They cleaned up the tools and prepared a simple dinner. The cabin felt warm and peaceful again. During dinner, Ravi spoke about his travels. He described the towns he had passed through, the small jobs he had taken, and the people he had met. Mira listened with interest. His stories were simple but full of quiet meaning. He talked about life with acceptance rather than complaint. She admired that. When he finished speaking, she asked if he planned to stay in one place someday. Ravi thought for a moment. He said he wished for a stable life again, maybe a place where he could work regularly and not worry about where he would sleep each night. Mira looked at him thoughtfully. She wondered if she could offer him something like that, yet she hesitated. She was still afraid of revealing her true identity. Later that night, Ravi sat near the window and watched raindrops slide down the glass. The forest was dark, but the cabin glowed gently from the oil lamp. Mira sat nearby, writing in her notebook again. She looked calmer now, as if the long day had eased her mind. Ravi stood and thanked her for the warm meal. She thanked him for the repairs and for staying despite the rain. Their words were simple, but they carried a growing connection neither of them fully understood yet. As he lay down to sleep that night, Ravi felt something shift inside him. The cabin no longer felt like just a job. It felt like a place where he belonged, even if only for a short time. He felt a sense of peace that he had not felt in years. Mira stood by the window after he fell asleep. She watched the quiet forest and wondered how long she could keep her secret hidden. She feared the truth would break the fragile trust they had built. But she also hoped that maybe, just maybe, this quiet man would see her not for her wealth, but for who she truly was. And that hope warmed her heart more than the fire ever could. The morning after the rain was bright and clear. Sunlight fell through the tall trees and touched the cabin walls with a warm glow. Ravi stepped outside as the fresh air filled the clearing. The forest smelled clean, like wet leaves and new beginnings. He felt lighter today, ready to continue the repairs. The cabin had become more than a place to work. It felt like a space that slowly welcomed him. Inside, Mira prepared breakfast. She looked calmer than the day before, though there was still a trace of hidden pressure in her eyes. She had barely slept, not because of fear of the storm but because her mind was full of thoughts she could not ignore anymore. Every day spent near Ravi made her secret harder to carry. She knew the moment of truth was coming. When Ravi walked in, she smiled warmly and set the table. He thanked her for the food and sat down. They ate quietly at first, enjoying the peace of the morning. The silence between them felt natural now. It was not awkward or heavy. It was gentle, like two people who understood each other without needing many words. After breakfast, Ravi stepped out to inspect the fence behind the cabin. The rain had weakened several posts. He pressed the wood gently and noted how much of it needed to be replaced. Mira followed him outside with a notebook, saying she wanted to learn how he planned repair tasks. She walked beside him, listening carefully as he explained each step. His voice was steady, and she admired how simple he made everything sound. While they talked, a sudden sound echoed faintly from the forest. It was unusual, like a car engine approaching from far away. Mira froze for a moment. Ravi noticed her reaction. He looked toward the trees and saw a black car slowly appearing on the narrow path that led to the cabin. The vehicle looked expensive and out of place in such a natural setting. Mira's calm expression shifted. She tried to hide her worry, but Ravi could see it clearly. The car rolled to a stop near the clearing, and two well-dressed men stepped out. Their presence immediately changed the atmosphere. They walked with confidence and purpose, as if they were used to meeting important people. One of the men addressed Mira with a respectful bow. His voice was formal as he greeted her using a title Ravi had never heard before. The words were spoken with sincerity, not as a mistake. They called her owner Mira and mentioned companies, agreements, and a major announcement waiting for her in the city. Ravi stood still. The world around him slowed. In that moment, the question he had pushed aside for days became clear. Mira was not simply a woman who bought a small cabin. She was someone powerful, someone who carried a life far bigger than the quiet world she tried to create here. Mira raised a hand to stop the men from saying more, but the damage was done. Ravi looked at her, and she saw the understanding in his eyes. She felt her heart tighten. She knew she could no longer hide. The men continued speaking, explaining that the board needed her immediate approval on important decisions. They said investors were waiting and that the news channels were preparing to cover the upcoming event involving her business. Ravi listened silently, trying not to show his surprise. Mira dismissed the men politely, telling them she would return later. They hesitated but obeyed, bowing again before walking back to the car. When the vehicle finally disappeared into the trees, the clearing fell silent. Mira stood still, her hands trembling slightly. Ravi waited for her to speak. She took a slow breath, her eyes unsure but honest. She asked him to sit with her on the porch. He followed without hesitation. She looked at the ground for a long moment before speaking. She said she owed him the truth. Her voice was soft but filled with the weight of what she was about to reveal. She explained that she came from a wealthy family and that she had inherited a company that controlled several major industries. She explained that she spent years in meetings, solving problems, making decisions, and carrying responsibilities she neither sought nor enjoyed. She told him she bought the cabin hoping to find a place where she could breathe without pressure. A place where she could remember who she was beyond her title. She said she did not lie to him because she wanted to deceive him. She hid the truth because she wanted to be treated like a normal person, not like a figure of power. Ravi listened carefully. His expression remained calm. He did not interrupt her or react with judgment. Mira watched his face with growing uncertainty. She feared disappointment, fear, or distance. She feared losing the one connection she had that felt real. When she finally finished speaking, Ravi remained silent for a moment. Then he said he understood. He had met many people in his travels, and he knew everyone carried their own burdens. Her burden happened to be wealth and responsibility. His burden happened to be survival and uncertainty. He told her that both lives had struggles. Both lives had pain. Her world was not easier just because it was rich. Mira felt tears fill her eyes, not from sadness but from relief. She had expected him to walk away, to see her as someone who lived far above his world. But he spoke to her as if nothing had changed. His calm acceptance warmed something deep inside her. He told her he came to repair the cabin and would finish what he started. Wealth or no wealth, a promise was a promise. That single sentence eased the heaviest part of her heart. She thanked him quietly. Her voice shook. The rest of the afternoon passed in calm silence. Ravi repaired the fence while Mira helped by handing him tools. She no longer tried to hide her true manner of speaking. She no longer lowered her gaze when her phone buzzed. She no longer felt she had to pretend. At one point she apologized for not telling him earlier. Ravi said she needed time to trust, and trust never grew quickly. She looked at him with admiration. In her world, people only spoke kindly when they wanted something. But Ravi asked for nothing, expected nothing. He simply continued working with steady focus. When evening fell, they ate a quiet dinner together. Mira felt lighter than she had in years. Ravi seemed more relaxed too, as if respect had grown between them. After dinner, they walked outside to see the forest glowing softly under the fading light. The trees swayed gently. The cabin stood stronger now, almost alive with new hope. Mira stood beside Ravi and thanked him again. She said his presence reminded her of the person she used to be before her life became complicated. He replied that her kindness reminded him that the world still held good people. Their words were simple, but the meaning behind them was deep. Later, when Ravi lay down to sleep, he felt something shift inside him. He no longer saw Mira as just a woman who hired him. He saw her as someone carrying a heavy weight. Someone trying to find peace. Someone who trusted him enough to reveal her truth. Mira watched him once more from the doorway before blowing out the lamp. She felt a quiet connection forming between them. She hoped he would stay until the cabin was finished. She hoped he would stay even longer. But for now, the night wrapped the cabin in calm silence. Two people from different worlds shared the same roof, the same air, the same hope. Neither knew what the future held, but both felt that something important had begun. The cabin stood brighter in the gentle morning light. Sun rays touched the fresh wooden boards, and the forest carried a calm silence that felt almost magical. Ravi stepped outside, stretching his tired muscles. He looked around the clearing with a quiet sense of pride. The broken roof was strong now, the porch was new, and the fence stood straight without leaning. The cabin looked alive again, almost as if it had been waiting for someone like him to bring it back to life. Inside, Mira prepared breakfast with a peaceful expression. She felt different today. The heavy secret she had carried for so long was no longer locked inside her. She found relief in the simple truth that Ravi knew who she was and still chose to stay. Instead of fear, she felt gratitude. Instead of unease, she felt calm. When Ravi walked in, she greeted him with a brighter smile than usual. He noticed it, but did not comment. He simply thanked her for the warm meal and sat down. They ate slowly, enjoying the quiet connection that had grown between them. It was a connection made not by wealth or status but by honesty and trust. After breakfast, Ravi gathered his tools for the final tasks. Only small details were left. A loose window frame that needed tightening, a door hinge that needed adjusting, and a few boards on the cabin's sidewall that required reinforcement. Mira followed him around, wanting to be part of the last day of repairs. She asked if he planned to leave soon. Her voice was steady, but he sensed a trace of worry behind it. Ravi paused and looked at the cabin before answering. He said he would leave when the work was fully finished. He spoke calmly, yet something inside him felt heavier at the thought of going. This place had brought him more than shelter. It had given him a sense of purpose and a rare kind of peace. Mira nodded and walked beside him, pretending to check the wood, though her mind was far away. She did not know how to ask him to stay without sounding selfish. She did not know if she even had the right to ask. Her world was filled with people who followed her instructions, but Ravi was not someone she wanted to command. He was someone she wanted to understand the language of her heart without needing many words. By afternoon, the last repairs were nearly done. Ravi tightened the final screws on the window frame and stepped back. The cabin looked strong and warm, ready for many seasons. Mira stood beside him, admiring the results. The building had changed, but so had something inside her. She felt connected to this place in a new way because it carried the touch of someone who cared. Ravi put his tools inside his backpack one by one. Mira felt her heart tighten as the bag grew heavier. She knew the moment was coming. She tried to smile, but her eyes gave away her sadness. He thanked her for trusting him, for the meals, and for the shelter. He said working here reminded him of a life he once wanted, a life where he could build things and feel like he belonged somewhere. Mira listened carefully, her hands clasped together. She asked him gently where he would go next. Ravi said he did not know. He lived day by day. Sometimes he found work. Sometimes he walked for days with nothing but hope to guide him. He said he had learned to keep moving because staying in one place had never been possible for someone without a home. Mira felt a sharp ache in her chest. She wished she could say something simple like stay here or let me help you, but the words felt heavy in her throat. Just then, her phone rang. She ignored it. Then it rang again. She finally answered, but her voice carried irritation. The caller said the city expected her by evening. They told her she needed to attend a meeting, sign documents, and face the press. They reminded her of her responsibilities and how many depended on her decisions. Ravi listened quietly while she spoke. When she ended the call, Mira looked at him with helpless eyes. She said she needed to return to the city soon. Ravi nodded. He understood. Her life was not simple. She belonged to a world far beyond this quiet forest. They walked around the cabin one last time. Mira traced her hand along the new porch railing. She thanked him again, but her voice trembled slightly. Ravi gave a small smile, saying he only did what he promised. As he prepared to leave, Mira stepped forward suddenly. She asked him if he would wait for a moment. He stopped. She disappeared into the cabin and returned holding a small envelope. Her hands shook as she extended it toward him. She said it was payment and something more. Ravi opened it and found money, more than he expected. He gently shook his head, saying it was too much. She insisted, saying he earned it through hard work. Then she said something that made him look at her with surprise. She told him the extra money was not charity. It was an invitation to choose a new path. A chance to start again if he wanted. Ravi stared at the envelope quietly. Mira stepped closer and said he deserved a stable life, not a road filled with uncertainty. She said she believed he could build something strong if he had the chance. Her voice was full of sincerity, not pity. He thanked her softly. His words were few, but they carried deep meaning. He said her kindness gave him something he had not felt in years. Hope. Mira felt emotion rise in her chest. She wanted to say more. She wanted to tell him that his presence repaired something inside her too. But she did not know if the words would come out right. So she simply said he was welcome to return any time. Her door would always be open for him. Ravi looked at her with calm eyes. He said he might return one day if life allowed it. His voice was gentle, but Mira felt a spark of promise inside his words. He walked toward the forest path with slow steps. Mira followed him until the trees cast shadows across the ground. She stopped. At the edge of the clearing as he turned back one last time. Their eyes met in the soft golden light. For a moment, the world felt still. No sounds. No movement. Just two people from different lives held together by a simple truth. They had changed each other without planning to. Ravi gave her a small nod. She smiled, though her heart felt full and heavy at the same time. Then he turned and walked down the path, his figure slowly fading between the trees. Mira watched until he disappeared completely. She stood there alone, but she did not feel empty. She felt strong. The cabin behind her felt like a symbol of renewal. The man who repaired it had also repaired something deep inside her. She whispered a quiet thank you, not to the forest but to the path he took, hoping it would bring him to a brighter future. As she walked back to the cabin, she carried a soft hope inside her. She believed their paths would cross again. Not because of money, not because of duty, but because connection had formed in the silent spaces between their words. And somewhere on the long road ahead, Ravi carried the same hope in his heart.